Kuva Nukor is one of Tenno's favorite weapons for sheer strength and simplicity of use. With Xamarin Update, we've got an upgrade to an already overwhelmingly strong weapon. Cascadia Flare is a secondary arcane that has a total of 480% extra damage buff on maximum of 40 stacks, which is a damage upgrade over what we get from Deadhead, Merciless or Dexterity, but in exchange Cascadia Flare loses all its stacks in 10 seconds. So it kinda even makes sense for your sidearm, where we are already likely to use galvanized shot, so when you pull your weapon out, damage is going to be pretty poor until you get some stacks going. With Cascadia Flare, this is a non-issue. With just how much status you get with Kuva Nukor, you max out those stacks near instantly. And this goes into what's probably the most widely used build for Kuva Nukor, which is taking Magnetic as a Kuva Lich bonus elemental, building it for viral plus heat, with two 60/60 mods for viral and a prime heat because of the big number. In that build, heat is by far the highest amount of damage, as it alone is just shy of 50% of weapon's total damage. So that means heat status effect will be heavily prioritized. Viral debuffs health, magnetic debuffs shields, heat strips armor, so it's a perfect combo to escalate damage. Innate Radiation is there just for another stack of galvanized shot, and to add to it, Nukor has its own unique microwave status. Worth noting from my build here is that I have critical damage on it, but that's because I run Arcane Avenger with Grendel as well as an Adorza Kavat, so that's the reason you're seeing way more critical hits than usual. With Kuva Nukor's critical damage modifier being so high, it's kinda hard to resist doing it. For my Riven, it's multi-shot damage and punch through, with the last stat being one that's most important here. Because when you have punch through, then your beam goes through enemies as well as it chains out from each enemy you hit with the initial beam, increasing total damage in the area of effect. But if you don't have a Riven and you don't want to force criticals, I'd still recommend using punch through, and on top of it more fire rate will always help. To avoid boring you with math, when we count in all the damage modifiers from Galvanized Shot and compare Merciless to Cascadia Flare, total damage modifier difference at max stacks is about 10%. So it's worth upgrading once you get the Zerman stuff, but I don't think it's a must-have over those Steel Path Arcanes, because even after the nerf, Kuva Nukor is still one of the best secondary weapons, so extra 10% feels like it goes beyond the icing on the cake. But once you get it, I do not think there's a reason not to run Cascadia Flare on Kuva Nukor, apart from use of Dexterity Arcane in more melee-focused builds. What I find slightly odd is that this arcane, Cascadia Flare, is basically mostly introduced for Kuva Nukor. There are a handful of other weapons that can benefit from it, as you need high fire rate and high status chance. So from balancing perspective, it's odd, but from monetary perspective, I guess it makes perfect sense. I hope we see more firearm arcanes with such easy to get and quick to expire bonus. Even adding higher damage bonuses maybe, but as a trade-off, there's a cooldown or something like that. It makes sense for weapons that we hold in our pocket. To add a few words about the choice of Kuva Lich Elemental bonus. Prior to introduction of galvanized mods, I could maybe see a reason not to run Magnetic as a Kuva Lich Elemental bonus on Kuva Nukor, as focusing on stronger elements might be a good choice against enemies who don't care about Magnetic. Still, Magnetic Kuva Nukor was the best primer for Condition Overload, and that hasn't changed really. But with Condition Overload making its way into firearms in the shape of galvanized status mods for each class, apart from arc guns because screw them, even with magnetic damage having poor damage modifier against almost every enemy without shields, you still get an extra status type for your galvanized shot, ultimately making it hit harder. Plus, you get to melt enemies with shields, so it's a win-win. That's it for this one. Hope you enjoyed it, subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one.